Hey guys, Mike here from Lunch Money Comics. What was supposed to be a quick trip to a couple of indoor flea markets spiraled a little out of my control, and I ended up at a pawn shop down in Connecticut. And what did I get at that pawn shop? Every single comic book in the place. Listen, I wasn't planning on buying whole collections today, but sometimes the deals are just way too good to be true. So stay tuned, guys. I have a pretty great video to show you not only what I got in this amazing collection, but we'll see if I actually got a good deal or not. Stay tuned, guys. This is a fun one. So here I am arriving at Pawn Nation in New Britain, Connecticut. They had posted on Facebook that they had a ton of comic books they had to get rid of. I had some time, so I head on down. First thing I noticed is this vintage Hartford Whalers jersey. I am a huge NHL fan, so of course I caught my eye first. But it's your typical pawn shop, although it's a pretty big one. They had lots of, jewelry, gold, silver, coins, pretty good selection of kicks you see here, and a huge selection of sport cards, both vintage and modern. You see this old Wayne Gretzky card caught my eye. Like I said, big NHL fan. But it wasn't just sport cards. They had lots of other gaming cards. They had Pokemon, they had Yu-Gi-Oh!, they had individual cards, they had sealed packs. Everything seemed to be priced pretty darn good, to be honest. They even had some slab books. These weren't part of the deal, but definitely worth showing off. But I mentioned to the owner, Dave, who I was. I was interested in filming and seeing what kind of comic books he had. And he said, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm trying to get rid of all of these comics to free up space for more sport cards. Would you be interested in all of them? I said, well, let me take a look and we'll see if it's worth getting. Now, guys, a lot of this stuff was 80s and 90s comics. A lot of stuff that I'm not that interested in. But you see right off the bat, there was a ton of X-Men comics. This is my absolute favorite. So, of course, my interest was piqued. And I started seeing some pretty good, minor key issues. And he just kept taking out pile after pile after pile. And we were just roughly counting them up to get a sense of how many were in there. We thought there was like 500 to 600 of them. It wasn't all just 80s and 90s. There was some 70s stuff here. You see some, Bronze Age DC, a couple of funny books mixed in, and a lot of stuff from the 90s that were non-Marvel and DC. We're talking Valiant, Image, Dark Horse, a lot of the 90s stuff you see all the time that people usually don't want. But I barely looked at this collection, guys. Basically, the footage you see is the extent of how much I looked at it. We added it all up, and then he threw a number at me that was just too good to be true. He threw in the Hartford Whalers jersey to sweeten the deal, and we came to an agreement. All right, guys, I'm here with Dave, who has a YouTube channel, Dead on Dave.
Dead on Dave.
And I came in here saying I was looking for comic books, and he basically said every comic book in the entire store, which is probably like 600 books, plus a Hartford Whalers jersey. Yeah. I think we have an agreement, an accord. Deal, man. Awesome. Thanks so much, buddy.
Hey, no problem. Anything we do for Lunch Money Comics, my man.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. This will definitely be on the channel. Awesome. Can't wait to actually dig through here and see what the heck I just bought. I got a whole bunch of stuff. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it, man.
Pawn Nation, you guys need anything, we got you. Comic books, collectibles, and all the Dave you can handle.
There you go. All the day. Well, thanks a lot, Dave. I got my favorite part is the Whalers jersey, so.
Hell yeah.
Take it easy, buddy. Okay, guys, I finally made it home with the entire collection, but that was the easy part. Now begins the hard part, going through it all. Okay, guys, I finally finished going through this entire collection. That quick time lapse that you saw of me and my son sort of just putting these in rough piles, that was actually only about 2 hours. It actually took me over a week to go through all those piles, sort by title, number, and pull out all the books I thought were interesting or have some value. That's not to say it took me like a total week of work time. It means that I'm a really busy guy. I'm a busy father. I was actually, editing other videos and stuff. I could only really get to it late at night. So that's what I did. It took me over a week of every night going through all these. I enjoyed every single second of going through this box of chocolates, guys. There's some wild comic books in here, including some huge surprises I can't wait to show you guys. But before I do, I want to give you guys a quick recap again of how I actually got these. Like I said in the voiceover, this pawn shop had posted on Facebook. They had a lot of comic books. I was in the area. I had the time, decided to drop in. Immediately met the owner, Dave, that you saw in the footage. Mentioned who I was. I was thinking of going through the comic books and filming a bit. And he was very quick to tell me that he wanted to get rid of all of them because they were taking up a lot of space, and he had a lot more sports cards that he wanted to put out. And pretty much without me even looking at any comic books, he threw out a number. So I'm going to tell you that price in a second, but I had no idea, what this number meant. I didn't even know how many comic books were there, let alone exactly what was in there. So I started, roughly looking at them. You guys pretty much saw the extent of the footage of me looking. And while I was kind of looking through those books, he was putting them in piles of 25. And when we got up to the number around like 600 or so, his number started to make a lot more sense. So the number he gave me to buy all the comic books in the store was $280. So knowing there was at least 600 books, I'm thinking, okay, this is better than 50 cents a book. Which seems pretty good considering especially that almost all of them were bagged and boarded, which is huge. Those of you who are comic collectors know exactly what I mean by that. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. However, I also saw a lot of stuff I did not care about. And when I'm buying a lot of stuff like this, I usually want the price a little bit lower. I want it around like 33 cents or maybe 25 cents a book because I know at that price, the stuff I don't want, I could at least sell it to my local comic book store and at least get my money back for it, right? Not only that, I didn't want a lot of comic books. I said one of my New Year's resolutions was to stop buying lots of books. Well, I failed in 2024. That resolution is gone. I blew the doors off that one. So I didn't really want to get all these unless I could get it cheap. However, I actually didn't try to talk him down at all. And this is why. Because this is a person I'd never met before. I already thought it was a pretty decent deal. But he also told me he gets comic books in often. And when it's someone you've never met before, guys, but you might work with in the future, he might be a really good connection. You want to make a good first impression, right? So I wanted to build up a rapport and a friendship with this person. So I didn't want to haggle with him. I thought that was pretty fair. So $280 for all the comic books is what I agreed to. However, I still didn't know what was in the collection or how many there were. So there were a few other things I saw I wanted him to toss in, and he came way down on these other things. So the first thing he tossed in, he asked me, do you like comic book cards? Those of you that watch my channel know, absolutely I do. He had a ton of DC and Marvel. He said he was selling them for like $1 a piece, and there were insert cards and all sorts of goodies in there. I took all the Marvel cards and I said, how about 20 bucks for all of these? He said, sure. You guys are going to see I got a great deal on those. And the other thing I got, of course, was this right here. Let me be crystal clear, guys. I'm a die-hard Boston Bruins fan, but I'm also a huge just NHL fan, and I fondly remember the whole time I was growing up, New England had 2 NHL teams. I have a soft spot in my heart for the Hartford Whalers. So I was interested in this jersey. He had it priced at like $50. Because I was buying all the stuff, he sold it to me for 25 bucks. So here's the breakdown of what I actually spent. 25 bucks for this awesome vintage jersey, 20 bucks for all of the amazing Marvel cards you're going to see, and $280 for what ended up being over 700 comic books. Well over 700 comic books. If you do the math, I ended up getting these for like 35 cents a comic book. So that was a pretty darn good deal, I think, for what they actually are. Again, they're bagged and boarded already. It saved me a lot of time. So I'm pretty excited to go through all these guys and show them to you. I want to quickly mention once again, Pawn Nation down in New Britain, Connecticut. If you are definitely in the area of like Greater Hartford, definitely drop in. You can see it's your regular normal pawn shop, but it was pretty big. And especially if you love sport cards, not only did he have a lot and they were priced pretty good, he's getting a lot more that he's going to put out. And of course, Pokemon cards, things like that. He had a ton of that stuff. So guys, definitely stop by. Really, really nice guy. You also heard that he has a YouTube channel called Dead on Dave. Make sure you check it out. I'll put a link to it down in my description. So my original plan was to go through each of these piles, show you roughly what was in them, and show you a couple of the books I thought were interesting. But I got a better idea. Instead of me holding all of them up, I have my trusty camera mount right here. I'm going to put this on. I'm going to walk around to each of the piles, go through them to give you guys a sense of what I actually got, and show you some of the goodies that were hidden in here. Okay, here you see the entire collection laid out on my tables. Like I said, I sorted them by publisher and title numerically. I pulled some aside that were interesting, and this isn't even all of it. I even filled up an entire long box, and I have a whole bunch of other stuff that was mixed in. Like you saw, I bought all those boxes, including everything in them, even if they weren't comic books. So I actually want to start down here with some of the oddities I found in here, because I think it's kind of interesting. I got a whole stack of sports stuff, some big sports cards, a whole envelope of certificates of authenticity. Hopefully Dave doesn't need these. Some reprints of some old baseball photographs. We got Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth and stuff. These are pretty neat actually. And probably most unusual of all, we have some Miami Dolphins stuff from the 90s. We have a yearbook, picture of Dan Marino and a couple of team pictures here. I'm definitely not a Dolphins fan. I am from New England, but I thought that was kind of curious. I got some magazines in here. We have a Mad magazine, only one. But then we have not one, not two, but 3 Playboy 50th anniversary collector's editions still sealed in the package. I definitely do not collect these guys. I have no idea if these have any value. They're pretty hefty. They're very heavy books. Yeah, let me know if you guys know anything about these. These are very interesting. So these are small format horizontal comic books. We get some Ripley's Believe It or Not True Ghost Stories. We have some Twilight Zone, Grimm's Ghost Stories. I have tons of them. And I don't know anything about these, honestly, other than they're kind of cool. I don't even know what year they're from. My buddy Jeff from Comic Spot was down here. He said he thought they used to sell these in packets of like 3 or 4. But I don't know. So if you do know what these are, definitely let me know down in the comments. If you've seen them before, love to know what I have. I think they're pretty cool. All right, let's talk about the Marvel cards. Like I said, Dave had several boxes of cards. I took all the Marvel ones. And what was in here? Well, we have an entire set of Spider-Man cards from the early 90s. We have tons of those Marvel Masterpieces cards I mentioned. When I was a kid, guys, that Marvel Masterpieces Series 1 set was the Cadillac of Marvel trading cards. I used to absolutely love them. It took me a long time. In fact, I was an adult when I actually finished the set. So I have the Series 1 in here. We have Series 2. We even have a little bit of Series 3, which I never collected before. Also a ton of the Jim Lee XMen cards, which I absolutely love, including some holograms, which is pretty darn cool, right? So we get, Wolverines right there, right? Gambit's in here, yeah. So that's pretty cool, some 4 inserts. But the best part was, guys, like I said, this isn't all of them. So these are the first series by Joe Jusko. Now, there was enough cards in here that I was able to put together almost an entire set. Yeah, so I absolutely love this set, guys. I think there was like 80 unique cards, not counting the duplicates, which are still in the box. And yeah, I put them in sleeves, as you can see, and they look fantastic. I love this set. Now, here's the thing. Whenever I find these cards, guys, if I find them at a flea market or a yard sale, I grab them. And what I do is I put them in, boxes and all these albums, and I'm able to make other full sets, from the bits and pieces. And that's what I did. So I had most of the set that I got, and then using some of the extras I had, I was able to fill it in, and I have all but 8 cards for a second set of the Joe Jusko first Marvel Masterpieces. How awesome is that? I love these cards, guys. I actually had a conversation with Joe Jusko about this set, and he was actually very disappointed in it because they didn't give him enough time. They rushed him. I still think the art is absolutely fantastic. So how great is that, guys? That was very exciting as a Marvel card collector. We have a couple of huge format Treasury edition comics. We have a Superman one here. I love these guys because I don't know, I feel like a little kid, like looking at a gigantic comic book. So these are pretty cool. The other one is a Wonder Woman one. This is actually a reprint of Golden Age Wonder Woman. How awesome is that? I'm actually gonna read this. This is super duper cool. So yeah, that was kind of fun. So here's a bit of a bummer though. We have a small stack right here of damaged comic books. Yeah. So most of these, comics up here were in pretty good shape, but I did find some that were, coverless, or they were drawn on or ripped or teared, So yeah, this is sort of the casualties. But the biggest bummer of all was this one. So this is Vampirella Zero, published by Harris Comics. And yeah, you can see there's 2 signatures on here, and it was limited 308 out of 1,000 done. These signatures are mentioned on the COA on the back as Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti. So this is pretty cool. The bad news, it took some water damage, and the book is stuck to the backing board. Yeah, so this is trash. Now, maybe someone would still want it for the signatures, but yeah, that's a bummer. This would otherwise would have been a pretty cool, signed book, but alas, that one was pretty damaged. Which brings us to this box right here. I was able to fill an entire long box with X-Men and X-Men related titles. This is the reason why I wanted the collection. I love me my X-Men, and there's nothing more magical to me than a long box full of X-Men books. Now, about half of this box is Uncanny X-Men. They go from about issues 200 to about 350 or so. Now, although I have all of the, the earlier issues here that were done by Chris Claremont, I do not have a lot of the issues from like 300 to 400. Those were years where I wasn't really collecting very much, but I do want to get the entire Uncanny collection. So a good chunk of these I'm absolutely keeping. But of all the issues that are sort of, 200 and up, there's a lot of minor key issues as you would expect. You have things like, first mention of Omega mutants here. We got first Marauders, lots of duplicates too, which I thought was kind of interesting. And there's a lot of actually good key issues in this run. I was getting pretty excited. I was hoping, I would stumble across first Gambit or Sinister. Although there's almost an uninterrupted run from 2 to 300 here, it is missing some of the bigger keys like Gambit and Sinister. However, I did find some cool ones that I put off to the side worth mentioning. Those of you watching XMen 97 might recognize Life Death was a title of a couple of the episodes featuring Forge and Storm. Classic cover by Barry Windsor Smith of Wolverine and the Weapon X program. We have another famous John Romita Jr. cover right here of Wolverine. Classic Wolverine versus Sabretooth, also the first time Betsy Braddock, Psylocke, joins the team. Kind of interesting here. So this is X-Men number 248. This is the first Jim Lee art on X-Men. Normally this has a pink background, but this is actually the second printing where it's gold. I have a couple of these. Actually, I have lots of second printings in here. Those of you watching X-Men 97 wondering when Magneto and Rogue were a thing. Yep, they were a thing here. But this is definitely the best one I found in there, guys. Although there wasn't any, first Gambit or Sinister, I did find first appearance of Jubilee, X-Men number 244. I did see this when I was at the store, and this is what really kind of whet my appetite. I was hoping I'd find a lot more issues like this in here. I didn't, but this is definitely a cool book, guys. Absolutely. I have several copies of this, but always a fun book to pick up. But even besides, the Uncanny X-Men, of course, we have all the other X-Men titles. We have the regular X-Men. Yep, plenty of those. And we also have, this is very cool, speaking of the X-Men 97, a whole bunch of X-Men Adventures. So these were actually based off of the cartoon at the time. Cool homage to X-Men 101 there. So we have tons of those. We have some X Factor, which is another run that I'm trying to fill in. There were a couple of cool issues I found in there. Number 71 is the appearance of the new X Factor team. So X Factor up to this point was the original 5 X-Men, but when this issue came out, this is the same time we did the split between gold and blue teams in X-Men. So with the old X-Men going back to the X-Men team, X Factor got a new team of Havoc, Polaris, Strong Guy, Wolfsbane, and Jamie Madrox, and also the first appearance of Random. Yep, that's his name, Random. Kind of a cool anti-hero type character. So that was pretty neat. And then, going on a little further, guys, we got some new mutants in here. Again, some minor keys. X-Force, Alpha Flight. I threw Wolverine in here. We got Wolverine number 50, the cool die-cut covers. And it goes on. Exiles, Generation X, even some House of M and stuff, Age of Apocalypse. Oh, yeah, and X-Men 2099, a series I absolutely loved as a kid. So, yeah, guys, an entire long box of Uncanny X-Men, including a ton of Chris Claremont books. Absolutely love that I got all these. Super excited. Don't have time to go through all of them, but trust me, guys, really great stuff right here. All right, so now that I've showed you the X-Men books, let's show you the rest of the stuff on the table. I'm going to go through these as quick as possible, guys. There's a lot of books, so I'm just going to give you a general idea of what's in here. We had about 40 Fantastic Four books, Fantastic Four in related titles like The Thing. And there's some minor keys in here. They're almost all from the 80s. Like, this is the first time She-Hulk joins the Fantastic Four, replacing The Thing. Great Art Adams cover here. This is the first appearance of the new Fantastic Four, Spidey, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, and Hulk, which I really like. Again, lots of stuff in the 80s. Nothing too great, but some pretty great covers mixed in. Cool homage to Action number 1 there. Good stuff. Everyone loves Fantastic Four. All right, let's talk Spider-Man. Good mix of Spider-Man books. We have Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man. Great Cloak and Dagger cover right there. We even have some Web of Spider-Man. Oh, this is pretty cool. This is actually Eric Larson cover. Spidey with Beast. Another Larson cover right there. A couple of what ifs in here. What if Spider-Man married Black Cat? What if he had kept his 6 arms? Yes, that was a thing for a while. We have a couple of these here. This is actually the first appearance, I believe, of Frogman, who's the son of Leapfrog. I got a couple copies of that. We get some Marvel team-ups in here. Great one with Nightcrawler. I love this book. The most interesting stuff in here, though, was a couple of modern books. We have Gwenom vs. Carnage number 1 and a Carnage book. Don't know how those ended up there. And we have some reprints of the some old Spider-Man comics. So these are the Spider-Man collectible series. Yeah, and you see a reprint of the first issue, second issue, fourth issue, things like that. So this is fun if you want to read those early issues without having to spend a small fortune to get them. But the most interesting to me was these. So there was a lot of, in this collection, whole storylines like Secret Invasion and Civil War. The person that this came from clearly liked Spider-Man because he has 3 copies, different printings of Civil War #2, and this is a big issue because this is when Spider-Man unmasks himself in front of the world and reveals his secret identity of Peter Parker. So one of the bigger sort of moments in that Civil War storyline, I got 3 copies of it. Thought it was pretty cool. All right, let's move on next door to one of my other favorite characters in Daredevil. Small selection of Daredevil, but a lot of Frank Miller goodness in here, guys, which I absolutely love. This is a good issue here. This is where Kingpin figures out Daredevil's secret identity in number 227. Yeah, I love my Daredevil. Oh, this is a pretty cool book right here. This is The Man Without Fear #1, also Frank Miller. Yeah, never read that. Interested in it. Let's move on over to this pile. This is what I call the anti-hero pile. We have Ghost Rider and Punisher. Couple fun issues here, right? You get this, the evil orb, just a eyeball riding a motorcycle, shooting a laser, of course. Ghost Rider 15, I remember this as a kid. It's a glow-in-the-dark cover. One of the first, if not the first, glow-in-the-dark covers ever published. A ton of Punisher in here, guys. We get, not only the Punisher regular series, we got Punisher, Armory. We have Punisher Warzone. You see a first issue there. So yeah, I'm not huge into Punisher, but I got a lot of them now. Let's move on over to here. To the Avengers. So this is a huge pile of Avengers-related titles. Great issue right here, number 11 of the annuals. Cool, Avengers versus the Defenders. Lots of Avengers. I also threw in here West Coast Avengers. This is a minor key issue, I believe. First, Dark Wanda Maximoff, Dark Scarlet Witch. Yeah, we have all sorts of cool stuff in here. Actually, we have a lot of the Brian Michael Bendis run. This is cool. Road to Civil War. This is an Illuminati cover, issue number 1. Very cool. I love the Illuminati. Yeah, a lot of this Sentry storyline. So good stuff in here, guys. Lots of Secret Invasion that got tossed in here. Next door, we have some Thor. Here's all of our, Avengers-related titles. Huge run of Thor in here, including a lot by Walt Simonson. This is a very highly acclaimed Thor run. A couple minor issues in here. This one here is you see the Dark Elf Malekith, first appearance of one of his lieutenants, Algrim, also known as Curse, who, if anyone who saw Thor Dark World, he's actually in it. This issue right here actually has a cameo of, believe it or not, Clark Kent. Yeah, there's sort of a joke in here. Thor is trying to go incognito. Someone says, throw a pair of glasses on. It worked for the other guy. And then in an elevator, he bumps into Clark Kent and Lois Lane. They actually call him Clark. So kind of a fun little cameo there. Yeah, lots of Walt Simonson Thor, guys. There's even some Iron Man down here somewhere. Yep, a small selection of Iron Man. Nothing great, but again, a lot of Civil War related titles. There is a ton of Captain America in here. Some of them are from the Bronze Age. Most of them are from the 80s. Again, Captain America is a pretty cheap run to fill in, guys. Not a lot of big, expensive books. Still ones that are pretty notable. I found one right here. This is Captain America and the Falcon, number 217. And this is the first appearance of Wendell Vaughn, Marvel Man. Now, if that does not ring a bell to you, that's because Wendell Vaughn would change his name soon thereafter and call himself Quasar. Yeah, the first appearance of Quasar is actually in this book. A lot of people cite a Hulk book, but that's the one where he actually changes his name to Quasar. Wendell Vaughn's first appearance is in this one right here. So yeah, lots of 80s Captain America. And then down the bottom, believe it or not, I actually have a lot of the Brubaker run on Captain America, which is really good. I was hoping for some Winter Soldier stuff in here. There he is. But otherwise, yeah, pretty cool run. Fantastic art. We have the Epting art on a lot of these. So these are really cool, fun reading. And speaking of Avengers, let's move on over to the Hulk. Huge pile of the Hulk. We have some stuff from the 70s. And, like Captain America, Hulk is pretty cheap outside of the big Wolverine keys. But, if you want to fill in the Hulk run, they're pretty easy to find. I see them all over the place. There's some pretty cool covers in here. There's a couple covers I absolutely love. Where is it? That's a great one. Hulk with the Avengers. This one, Hulk 312. This is a Mike Mignola cover. Always liked it. Yeah, there's even some books in here I actually read, like this one. This is Hulk 402. This is a Hulk fighting an unsuited Juggernaut. It's actually pretty funny because the whole time they're fighting, Hulk's like, I know you from somewhere. And he can't quite place it because he's not wearing the armor. It's actually a pretty cool fight. So yeah, lots of cool Hulk, guys. Nothing really valuable, but fun. Some other smaller stuff. We have some Marvel Universe. This is like the encyclopedia of the Marvel characters. We have a good selection of Bears Beats Battlestar Galactica. Let me know if you know that reference. I'm not into Battlestar Galactica, but I have a pretty good stack here. And also Micronauts. There's about 20 or 25 Micronauts issues in there. Pretty good. All right, let's jump up to here. So this whole pile, in fact, these two piles are assorted Marvel. And this is like the cosmic pile. Ugh, let me grab this really quick. We have some Silver Surfer. I remember this issue. This is the 50th one. Some great Jim Starlin, Ron Lim art in it as well. And this is actually a lead-in to Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah, the end of this issue is actually Silver Surfer crashing through the roof of the Sanctum Sanctorum. Those of you that saw the MCU Infinity War, that role was taken up by Bruce Banner the Hulk because, there was no Silver Surfer in the MCU at the time. So yeah, pretty cool book right here, guys. Also has flashbacks to when Norrin Radd was a kid. He doesn't have cosmic power. He just looks like a little kid. Get to see him with his family. Fun read. We got some Warlock in here. We got Guardians of the Galaxy. We have Rom Space Knight, a big run of Defenders, some Doctor Strange, and actually almost the entire bottom of that is Conan. I don't know how it ended up in that pile, but I have a ton of Conan as well. And that last pile, let's see if I can get over to it, is assorted Marvel as well. We get some Westerns in here. We have some Dragon Slayer. I loved this movie when I was a kid. It's an 80s movie. It scared the you-know-what out of me, but I absolutely loved it. Dark Crystal is another thing I actually loved a lot. This one was interesting, too. This is Star Wars Galaxy Edge #1. This is a third printing. This is a thing. It's a thing. I don't know what it is. I remember looking this up and seeing something about it. Let me know down in the comments if you know. Howard the Duck, some 2099 series. Just lots of stuff in there, guys. Random stuff. All right, now let's move down to the DC, and there is a lot of it. Starting with this pile. Actually, let's start with this pile. So this is a whole bunch of, I think there's like 12 of them, 100-page giant comics, right? So we have Justice League of America, Teen Titans, and then we have lots of duplicates of Superman, tons of them, and Batman. Now, these are huge 100-page comic books with lots of stories, lots of characters featured. And they're pretty darn cool. Fun story with these, though, guys. While I was in the store, a young couple came in, and clearly they knew Dave. They said they just got married, and he congratulated them. And these books were all out on the counter, and the guy saw one of these, I think the Superman one. He's like, oh, I kind of want this. And he's like, sorry, guys, this guy here, me, is buying all of them. They're like, oh. And I said, just take it. I said, consider it a wedding gift. And he was like all shy. He's like, no, I can't do that. I'm like, please, just take it. So it's a wedding gift. I gave these people one of these. So I'm actually excited to check these out. Looks like some pretty good reading. All right, moving down here real quick. This is the Justice League characters pile. There's a lot of Justice League comic books in here, but also any characters that were affiliated that couldn't get their own pile ended up here. We have a whole bunch of Flash. We have some Wonder Woman, some Green Lantern, and Green Arrow. We have some, Aquaman. We have some Firestorm. Stuff like that, guys. We even have some, this Legion of Superheroes I toss in here. So just some random stuff. I don't think there's any key issues in there. We'll come back to Batman because the best book I found in this whole collection was in this pile right here. Let's talk Superman. Huge pile of Superman and related titles. We have some Bronze Age Superman. We actually have some older books. We have some older Lois Lanes and an even older Jimmy Olsen. Pretty cool. Tons of action comics, guys. We have a lot of Superman. We have World's Finest in here, Superman and Batman. We have a bunch of team-ups in here. I even put Superboy and Supergirl in here as well. So, again, lots of stuff from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. 3 decades worth of Superman books. These 3 piles right here are all assorted DC. I had so much DC, I ran out of room, guys. This is what we ended up with. So let's start with this pile. It's pretty good. We have some Teen Titans. This one's actually interesting. This is Tales of the Teen Titans number 42, first part of the Judas contract. And if that rings a bell, that's because issue number 44 is the first appearance of Nightwing and Jericho. And Jericho's first cameo is actually in this book, and I have 2 copies of it. Thought that was interesting. Lots of other, minor, first issues. We get some Doom Patrol right here, number 1. We get some Millennium, number 1. We got Hawk and Dove is mixed in here, number 1. We get Claw the Unconquered. All sorts of crazy stuff. Oh, this is actually a pretty darn good book, guys. So this is Static number 1. In this poly bag here, we get the comic book, 4 panels of a mural, an exclusive poster, and a trading card. Now, this was actually published by DC, but it was part of this group here called Milestone Media. This came out in 1993. Now, Milestone Media was formed by some African-American comic artists and writers who felt like there wasn't enough minority representation in comic books. So they started this Milestone Media. DC published it, and yeah, this is one of their major characters. This is Static. And I remember Static. I remember him from not only the 90s, but he actually had his own cartoon through the early 2000s. It lasted like 4 seasons. I think it was called Static Shock. I definitely remember it. And yeah, this is a pretty good book, guys, honestly. Now, this Milestone Media, universe was separate from DC until 2008 when they merged them together. And actually, Static ended up becoming a member of the Teen Titans. Thought that was super cool. That's actually a pretty good pickup, guys. And then these ones here, this is the full 12-part series of Camelot 3000. I knew nothing about these books, but my friend Jeff was here, and he saw these, and he got really excited, and he told me the premise behind them. And this is pretty comic booky. The premise is that King Arthur, Merlin, and the other Knights of the Round Table are revived in the year 3000, where the Earth is, this dystopian future, and they're being invaded by aliens, and they're trying to save the world. Come on, that pretty much sells itself, right? So Jeff said he'd be interested in these, once I went through them all. I'm actually thinking of reading this. That's just such a wild premise. I thought it was pretty cool, guys. Let me know down in the comments if any of you actually read this series or not. Yeah, these other piles here, we have some, DC war books. Some stuff from the Bronze Age. A couple other cool books I found. We have, Return of the New Gods #1, First Orion, New Suit. We get some Justice League Dark characters. We got Madame Xanadu #1, Shade the Changing Man, his first appearance. He was on Justice League Dark. Legion of Superheroes 298. This is the first appearance of Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld. You see right there in that preview. We got some Swamp Thing. We got Phantom Stranger, The Shadow, all sorts of wild stuff in there, guys. And then even up here, we have some other titles I just couldn't fit into any other pile. We got some old Bronze Age Shazam, Metal Men. We got All-Star Squadron, first appearance of Cyclotron. That's kind of fun. Some Legends. We get Starfire. So all sorts of goodies. All right, now let's move on over to these 3 piles, guys, because these 3 piles are the 90s independent comics. Now, these are the comics that we find at flea markets and pawn shops all the time, right? The stuff that nobody seemingly wants. And these were ubiquitous in the 90s, these other publishers. These 2 piles are all Valiant. Now, it's very easy to turn your nose up to this stuff, guys, but I tell you, of all the comics in this collection, these are the ones in the best shape. Whoever had these, clearly it meant a lot to them. They're nice bags and boards. And let's start with this. Everyone knows what this is. Turok, Dinosaur Hunter #1, chrome cover. Everyone had this book. We have some other pretty good stuff in here, though. We have some Ninjak. If you find this with the gold trade dress, by the way, it's worth a couple bucks more. Shadow Man. Everyone's seen these Deathmates. These are, a Valiant Image team up. Ooh, this book's actually a thing. This is Solar Man of the Atom. And this is actually the first appearance of a huge bad guy, usually called like the Lex Luthor of the Valiant universe. His name escapes me. I'm going to put it on the screen right now. Do you see it? Yeah, that guy. I have no idea who that guy is, but his first appearance is in here, and it's a pretty big book. We have Solar, we have Exo Manowar, a ton of these, again, the chrome covers. And up here we have Harbinger. Harbinger was a pretty well-received series, if I recall. Tons of Harbinger in here. We have other titles. We have Magnus Robot Fighter. We have all the other stuff they have, like Hardcore. We have... so much Bloodshot. All the stuff that everyone knows and remembers from that time period. But they're in pretty great shape, so someone might find them interesting and be into them. This pile here is everything else I could not fit neatly into a pile. We have a ton of Image stuff in here. We actually have exactly 3 issues of Spawn, and they're all the same issue of number 11. We have Robotech Masters #1. I had a friend who was huge into Robotech as a kid. This is pretty good. This is actually a Dave Stevens cover. I've talked about it on my channel in the past. This is Grendel #4. Panda Brothers did the art. Dave Stevens did the inking. I found this really cool, like, ash can size comic. I remember these hero books that were sealed in these protectors would be given out often at, like, comic book shows in the 90s. This is a Q unit. Know nothing about it. This is Darker Image. We have Sam Keith, Jim Lee, and Rob Liefeld. One of those is not like the others. We get some Cyber Force, Youngblood, a whole bunch of really strange independent stuff, guys. Oh, we have some DNA Agents. There's a pretty famous Dave Stevens one featuring her. That was not in here. Miss Tree. These are by Renegade Press. I don't know what these are. Truth be told, guys, I have not gone through this entire pile. There's some strange stuff in here, some Crossfire. So yeah, I got to go through that a little bit more carefully. And let's finally go over to this pile right here. So this is all like the funnies comics. You know, we get some Disney stuff in here. Some Whitman, Donald Duck. We got some Dennis the Menace, Richie Rich. We have, this is pretty cool. This is a Mickey and Goofy. Looks like it was given out in, Exxon Mobil, stations. The coolest ones in here are definitely Popeye. So we have 3 cool Charlton Popeyes. I thought they just look great and pretty cool. So that's it for all of these individual piles. That's a Kool-Aid comic down there. But there's one pile I have not showed you, and it is the Batman pile. And the reason I haven't showed it to you is because the best book that was in this entire collection is in this pile right here. So a lot of these comics are, not really worth that much. We have a couple of old, 70s ones here. We have a lot of the regular Batman title, from the 80s. I think this is like a minor key issue. Yeah, tons of Batman. Again, nothing really worth a lot. There's some Batman like year 3 and stuff in here. A ton of detective comics. Pretty darn good run of those. There's also a couple issues in here, runs I've never heard of, titles like Batman and the Outsiders. We also have some Shadow of the Bat. There's a ton of these, right? But down the bottom here, we have the last 2. We have Batman, the Golden Streets of Gotham. I just thought this was interesting looking, great cover. Don't know much about it. Okay, so you guys have seen this collection now, right? Most of it is 80s and 90s stuff that's not very desirable. What is the last book you would find in a collection like this? Well, I'll tell you, I was completely surprised when I found this because my son actually dug it out first, and he was just as surprised as me. It's this. So this is a Golden Age Detective Comics. This is number 182 from 1952. We're talking Bob Kane art in this, guys. My son found it, and it was shocked, and it wasn't bagged or boarded. It was just loose. He asked me what year it was, and when I opened up the cover, he kind of yelped, and the reason was some pieces started to flake off of it. You can see there's some damage to it. You can tell off the bat that it's a darker cover, right? You can see how it's sort of browned or tanned. That's usually a surefire sign that it's a lot of acid in the paper, and that makes it very brittle. And sure enough, yes, it's in not great shape. The back cover is also missing a piece like this. I quickly bagged and boarded it. Not a big key issue, guys, but what a delightful surprise to find in this collection. I did not expect it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's not worth a ton. I might put it on the wall, over there. I think it looks great, with Batman and Robin being controlled by a puppet master. I just thought it was awesome, guys. What a fun surprise. This is why it's a box of chocolates, right? You never know what you're going to get. This is why you buy those collections. So what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to set the chair back up and just give you guys a quick debrief of what I think about this entire collection, if I think I got my money's worth, which comic books I'm keeping, and what I'm going to do with the rest of it. So there you go, guys. That was the comic book collection I bought at a pawn shop for $280. I know this was a slightly longer format video, but that was me going through these as fast as possible. Had I gone through one by one, it would have been like a 2-hour video. No one's got time for that, but you guys got a general idea of what was in here. Lots of small stuff, not many like big key issues, certainly no big grail to make it all worth it, but what I did get was pretty exciting. I got a lot of books I'm pretty happy to add to my collection, including some big surprises. Paramount among them, this one here. Never expected to find a Golden Age Batman loose, unbagged and boarded in between some 90s books, guys. What a delightful, pleasant surprise. Of course, the X-Men books. I absolutely love them, guys. Got lots of cool key issues in there. Love me my Frank Miller Daredevil, some Civil War Spider-Man. I love the Justice League Dark characters, adding these to my collection. Even stuff I didn't know I wanted. I was super happy to find this Static #1. I think it's a book with a cool history attached to it. I was happy to find it and share that history with all of you. Even the independent stuff that I know a lot of people stick their nose up to, I found some pretty cool books in there. In bare minimum, guys, I had a great little trip down memory lane to 1990s Mike collecting. I got some great reading material, especially excited to dig into these DC ones. But of course, my favorite things I think that I got were the Marvel trading cards. I absolutely love these guys. I got that box for $20. The fact I could almost finish a set of Marvel Masterpieces Series 1 was pretty awesome. I did not really expect that. So yeah, guys, so in terms of the books I actually found, I'm keeping a lot of these key issues, and I'm keeping most of the X-Men books. There's a ton in there I need for run fillers, and even the ones I do already have, I'm certain there's some upgrade copies mixed in there I can add to my current collection. But what am I going to do with the rest of these comics? Well, here's the thing. I don't often sell comic books, but I do sell at like flea markets, mostly antiques and vintage toys, and when I do, I tend to bring back issues of comic books. The thing is, I got rid of most of mine last year. I either sold them or I traded them up to get a bigger book. So I was kind of running low on cheap inventory, and that's where a lot of this stuff is going to go. I just did the math again, and it worked out to be about 37 cents a comic book. So I think a lot of these will be in dollar bins, maybe some 50-cent bins. I'm sure I'll do a package deal if people can buy lots of them, but that's the plan. A lot of the ones I don't care about, I will try to sell really cheap at flea markets and at least try to get my money back. Here's the thing though, guys. You don't need to buy these collections always to make money. The first time I bought a big collection like this, one of my earliest videos, I said this. I said, going through all these books not only made me feel like a little kid, but 11-year-old me would have been shocked to see this many comic books in one place. I didn't have a lot of money as a kid, so I couldn't afford that many comic books. But when I go through a big collection like this, guys, I feel like an 11-year-old. For the first time, I'm looking at these books and I can't help but stop, open them up, flip through, and see that magic pop off the pages. And that's really the power of comic books for me. I enjoyed going through every single one of these. That sense of wonder I experienced over 700 times going through these. And there were so many books I stopped. And I remembered, as a kid, and I opened them up and started reading. Like this book. I remember this book as a kid. I opened it up, got sucked into it. You just can't help yourself, guys. And that's what comic books are really about. A box of chocolates, 700 strong, and I enjoyed the taste of every single one of them. So guys, I want to know what you think though. Head on down to the comments and let me know what you think of this collection. Which of these books here are your favorite? Are there any of these that you read? Let me know about the stuff I did not know about, like those little miniature comic books there. And definitely, guys, let me know if you think I got a good deal, 280 bucks for like 750 comics. I think I got a great deal, but I'd love to hear from all of you. That is it, guys. In the meantime, keep hunting for comic books in strange and unusual places like pawn shops. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.